Hey everyone, Lucas is here, welcoming you back again with Solid State Logic. And today we're exploring the SSL Fusion plugin suite. These are a set of meticulously modelled hardware recreations of the renowned Fusion rack processor that brings a set of 5 different tools to bring colour and vibes to your track, with each plugin taken from a section of the hardware unit but with added controls, giving you the power to use any element of the Fusion processing anywhere in your mixes in any order. Unlimited variation for endless creative results. So join me now as we explore a track where I've used the Fusion plugins to elevate my mix, and we'll take a closer look at the GUI controls and listen to how they're able to shape the sonics in each section. Let's go. Cool, so we're in the mix now and I'm going to use the Fusion plugins to master this track. I've got a really cool house track by my guy Levan, and let's first have a listen to it with all the processing going on. This is what we're aiming to finish with. After that, we're going to go through each plugin on the master bus just so you can have a look at the GUI, listen to how it sounds on and off, and then we'll come back and use them all together to finish this track. So this is what we're aiming for. Loads of vibe, loads of colour, wicked groove, perfect house track as far as I'm concerned. So let's now look at all the plugins I've got on, and let's turn these off and we'll start with the vintage drive. So vintage drive, taken from the first element of the Fusion rack. This is giving us our saturation, our texture, our colour. This is the bulk of the saturation that I'm going to be using in the track, and I'm doing it all on the master bus, so I don't have to fill the track with loads of different saturation. I'm gluing the track together just with a real nice analog sort of halo, and that's coming from the vintage drive. So we've got a few controls here. We've got our bypass with in, we've got input and output trims and our displays here to show the levels. Then we've got our drive control, our density control, our mix control, and our auto gain. Now, the drive control is our driver mount, so we're going from very little drive all the way up to 11. Then we've got the density control, and the density isn't minimum to maximum, it's different types of drive. Now, the minimum density, this is our second order harmonic. This is our transformer, low mid, sort of bump, grit, distortion type of effect. As we move through, we're blending through to our third order harmonic around the 6th part. It's more of the tubey, transistory type of smooth top end distortion. And then ultimately at max, we're going into our tape distortion. Now this is a really nice roll off, smooth off the high end. This is where I tend to like to leave the mix, but let's have a listen through or sort of all throughout the range. Now mix control, nice parallel, wet and dry, and the auto gain is going to level compensate against the extra drive that we're adding in through the drive and density. So let's just drop back in on our track. Let's drop in about here, and we're going to turn this on, and I'm going to play first off with the low density, and then we'll move through and you'll hear the difference. So this is dry, start off medium, nice subtle low end little push with the saturation here. Obviously we can get that really nasty. As we move through, it's going to round off a bit. The third order is less sort of catchy and grabby. Feel that push in the upper mids. Now if we pull that all the way, to our sort of tape style distortion. Drive that a bit harder. Loads of saturation, but it's not breaking up, it's not biting. And just tickling the orange is where I like to keep it. The reds, it breaks up a little bit too much. It's not really appropriate for this track. Let's find that sweet spot. Maybe a little bit more third order. Listen to how much sort of weight it's giving the bass, letting that push through the mix. That kick's sort of finding a place. Cool, that's the vintage drive. So we've got sort of a range of different density options that are going to give us our light saturation, our top end sheen, all the way to our full-on distortion with the low density. Playing that drive control, playing that mix balance just to find that sweet spot. I like to sort of sit around here. I think that's where this track needs it to be. Loving it. Right, cool. Next, we're going to move on to the Violet EQ. So let's take that. Now, the Violet EQ is, again, modelled on the Fusion EQ. We've got a little bit of extra control here. So we've got our high pass filter, we've got our low and our high range with sort of 2-band EQ plus the high pass filter. And we've got our fixed points. We've got 30, 50, 70 and 90 Hertz down the low end, then 8K, 12K, 16K and 20K at the top. And these are our fixed points with a plus and minus 9 dB range. The idea of this EQ is to be quite linear, it's super clean, but it's a really nice EQ just to balance the mix. So if I want to just lift up the top end or just sort of give a little bit of a shove in the low end, I'm not adding extra saturation, I'm not colouring the sound, I can just really gently rebalance that. It's perfect for mastering, it's perfect just for that final EQ touch, just to sweeten the mix with the top end. And a really nice trick here is with the fat control, we get a little bump about where we put the low end. So if I've got this at 50 Hertz and I've got my high pass filter at 40 Hertz, I'm going to bump it at 50 so I get that little bit of a shove in the low end just to sort of bring back that punch at the cutoff point. Let's have a listen, and I've just got a little bit of a shelf here at 50 Hertz and 20K just to brighten it. Let's A-B it, have a listen here. It's like you don't know it's there until you take it away, and all of a sudden the air's sucked out of the mix. And 3 dB at the top, just under 3 dB, 2.5 dB at the bottom. It's not adding loads of sort of rubbish to the mix, it's just sort of gently raising it up, giving us that sort of slightly smiley EQ. It just sounds pleasant, and that's why I love the Violet EQ. It can be used everywhere just to rebalance stuff without adding extra distortion or coloration to a mix, which some EQs can do. Cool, right, let's move on to the high frequency compressor. Now this is a saving grace for mix engineers. If you've got something that's a little bit too sharp, a little bit too bitey, in the top end especially, it's very hard not to just sort of, if you're having to surgically EQ the top end, you start to lose all that air and sort of life out of a mix. With a HF compressor, we can use the tools here just to focus in on a very small range of frequencies, just to duck out maybe a bitey cymbal, maybe a hi-hat, maybe an overly sort of sharp vocal in the top end, and it just rebalances that. The idea is similar to sort of tape roll-off again, just smoothing off that top end, over digital, over bright, and just giving it that analog sheen. Give it the brightness with the EQ, roll it off with high frequency compressor, and then it's giving that mix a purpose in the top end. Right, so let's listen again. Similar place, bypass it, knock it back in, talk about what we've got set up. Listen to essentially the crashes in the drums. First off, let's look at the GUI controls. So we've again got our input and output trims and our bypass control. We've got our visualization here of the incoming signal. We've got our threshold control and our crossover control and our mix control. The threshold is going to set the level to which the compressor is going to act. The crossover is to the cue point of where we're going to start to see the compressor coming in. So at the moment, I'm only going to be compressing stuff around 12.5K. And then we've got a wet dry control again, just to blend to find that parallel mix if we want to really dig in and then roll it back a little bit more. Then finally the auto gain, which is going to bring back the level shift after the ducking. So if we've really heavily compressed a very bitey hi-hat, we're then going to bring the auto gain in, it's going to tilt it back in. You've got the smoothed off hi-hat and then the air's brought back, so we're not losing the top end of the mix. So let's play with some of these settings and you'll hear how we're sort of using this. So low threshold, not really doing much, dig it in. That cymbal crash, the hi-hats are really buried. Bring in the auto gain. Bring those back, but it's all smooth. Super effective, not just on the master, but anywhere you've got some high frequency information that is in need of controlling. It's ideal for snares and hi-hats before a drum bus. It's brilliant for vocals, especially if you've got a really bright condenser mic. It's just really useful in lots of different places. So not just for the master bus, but literally anywhere you're using high frequency content, just tame it, control it, and then your master bus is going to need a lot less processing. Cool, right. Next up, we're going to talk about the stereo imager, and this is probably my favorite part of the Fusion rack mount and definitely my favorite Fusion plugin. This is going to give us so much life in the mix. Now, it's based around the stereo shuffle technique, harking back from the 1930s. This is a very old technique that we've given a bit of a spin and put it into this unit. And what it does, very basically, is take everything under our shuffle point, low end frequency, and we're going to play it in opposite sides of the stereo balance, because that's the way we naturally hear bass. Low end frequencies are a lot less directional than high end frequencies, and essentially they can pass through our skull. So we can hear bass on the left pushing through our skull and hear it on the right in reality. But when we're in a mix and we're sort of going, oh, we've got to put our bass in mono because we can't have it left and right, to try and replicate that reality of the low end, it doesn't feel natural, or we have to just keep the bass mono. Whereas this way, we're allowing our bass to have a feel of stereo because we can spread it into the left and right channels. But because the way the stereo shuffle is working, it slices it up. So when you fold it back to mono, it's not going to collapse. You're not going to lose all of that stereo low end because it isn't phase. It's cleverer than that. Cleverer than me to explain it, surely. So let's instead listen to it. I'm going to play with these controls and you're going to hear the remarkable difference this is going to give to my track just by playing with this shuffle and space technique. The shuffle is the cue point. The space is plus or minus 12 dB of that frequency. Okay, so that is raising or lowering the mid-range frequency that I'm splitting between left and right. Again, let's listen to it, you'll get a better idea. I mean, what is there more to say? The dramatic difference in the width just by, I mean, I've increased that a lot. That's probably a little bit more than I'd normally do it. But everything under 300 hertz essentially is just being spread left and right to give that low end a width and a density and a dexterity. It feels like it cleans up the low end because we're allowing more balance in the left and right. We're not just funneling it straight down the middle. It gives more sense of space and more movement to the low end that you wouldn't have normally. And for that alone, the Fusion plugin range is just amazing for giving life back to a master. I love it in the hardware. I definitely love it in software. Just because we've got a little bit more control with the shuffle, we can find that cue point and really dial that in where we want that low end to move around. Now, the width control is working in a mid-side array. The width is the sides. This is the difference between the left and the right channel. So mid being the information is the same left and right, the side being the difference between left and right, and the width being able to raise or lower that side information. So simply by boosting up the sides with the width control, we're going to raise the difference in the mix. And again, that's just going to increase the sense of space and width. And that is a stereo imager. I love it. That is definitely, if you've not got these, if you've not tried them, start with this and it'll blow you away, promise you. Right. And finally, to finish out the package, we've got the transformer plugin. Now, on the hardware, this is literally a massive transformer that we engage, we turn it on or off on the hardware. But in software, we've got loads more control just to really dial in the sound of that transformer. And this can be really nice just to bring in a little bit of a sheen to a mix, just to polish it off, just to finish it. So let's again have a listen to the transformer plugin and then we'll talk about it. Quite an extreme setting, but even then it still sounds smooth, it still sounds appropriate for the mix. So the transformer here is doing a few different things. We're able to saturate the top end more than the low end. When we hit a transformer normally in reality, we're getting the low end sort of fizz and a bit of a sheen at the top, but a bit of a roll off as well. Now the shine here, we can maximize this. We can go from our 100%, which is our sort of nice little bit of sheen that we normally get, and double it. We can really push it to maximum just to emphasize that sort of high-end sort of dexterity that the transformer is going to give you, the extra harmonic content. The amount, again, we've got our standard amount, our 100%, which is fair amount of high frequency content, and really push that all the way to the max. And it's just going to give you that brightness. It's especially good if you've done quite a lot of high frequency compressing that we had earlier, just to sort of bring back that balance and sheen whilst again having a little bit of roll off. So they're working together, but they're each doing something slightly different. The mix control, again, giving us our balance between sort of parallel sort of compression, parallel mixing, because essentially this is working as a little bit of an EQ, a little bit of a compressor. The mix is just going to let us dial in that sort of perfectly, so we don't have to have too much or too little. Then finally, we've got the LF extender. The low F extender here is going to rebalance the loss of low end that you get with a real transformer. When we use a real transformer, there's a natural bass roll off, just the way it works. It's cool, it sounds quite nice, but sometimes you want that punch to stay. Maybe you've done all this and you don't want to lose that low end. The LF extender here is just going to rebalance and put back the weight that we lose when we use a real transformer. So we can have our more realistic interpretation of a transformer here and keep the LF off, or if we want the low end to kick back in, dial that back and we haven't lost any bass. We've got our metering here just to show us how much transformer saturation is going on. Let's have a listen. I'm going to play with these controls and you're going to see the difference. Let's find a natural point. Listen to the low end now. That kick, that bass has just sort of been pushed up. We're getting all the brightness back in for the hi-hats, the cymbal crashes, the vocal samples, the low ends being pushed forward. We're getting that saturation. Love it. Really, really cool. This is really nice to throw around in different sections of the track. It's really great on vocals in isolation, just to add a little bit more character. It's really nice if you've got a bass part that maybe just needs a little bit more mid-range. It's really good to just to saturate that as well. You sort of add the shine, brings back the mid-range, brings back a little bit more clarity in a low end or sort of guitar bass part. Really, really cool. So that is every single one of the Fusion parts, or the parts of the Fusion in plugin form. Let's have another listen back to all of them together, finishing off this mix, and we'll A/B them all again. You'll hear the difference. They work so powerfully together, but like we said, we can use these anywhere in our track. Individually, in combination, reorder them, however you want to use it. They're so flexible. Cool, there we go. Let's turn some of these off. And that is the power of Fusion in your DAW. Not much more to say, is there? You've heard the demos. I know you're going to want to try these out. If you're an SSL Complete subscriber, they are all ready and waiting for you in your downloads manager. Go get them, have a listen, have a play. You're going to love it. If you don't already own these, if you're not a subscriber, go check out the demos. You've got the opportunity to have them in your mix for a while. You'll get to learn to love them, and then you're going to never want to mix without them. So check those out. I've been Lucas Is. I've been showing you some plugins. I'm going to show you plugins next time. Tips and tricks, all of that on our socials, on our YouTube channel, on our Instagram. You know where to find us. But for now, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you next time. Peace.